The world is changing, not only the world we live in, but the world we live on.
New study this week in the journal Nature found mountain glaciers are melting more than twice as rapidly as in the early 2000s. They lost more than 600 billion tons of ice in 2023 when national environmental correspondent David Schechter visited Svalbard, Norway.
If you didn't think we were at the end of the world, well, we're going to go a little bit farther now.
The closer you get to Svalbard, Norway, the smaller the planes get. But that's not even the end of the journey. To study glaciers at the top of the world,
it's dramatic to see the changes from year to year.
Scientist Jack Kohler can only get to them by boat or chopper. He's an American who's been studying melting glaciers for nearly 30 years with the Norwegian Polar Institute.
This just goes endlessly this way, and we're on the river of ice, we're on the glacier.
We visited him in September 2023 at the end of Norway's summer, 600 miles from the North Pole. 6 months before, Kohler had driven a series of stakes deep into the ice. Then he came back to measure how much of the stakes were exposed.
In April, the ice surface would have been around here. So that much ice has melted during the summer.
Really?
Yeah.
So this was
buried in ice.
Bored into the ice.
Yeah.
And now it's all exposed.
And now it's exposed.
Oh my gosh. The calculations that he's making are really basic. Water out and then no sort of new ice in means that these glaciers are disappearing, and that's what he's measuring. And it's happening fast up here, really fast.
Kohler says this past year, melting here broke 58 years of records at a rate of melting that was 3.5 times the long-term average. The findings here are consistent with the latest research from around the world.
What's the connection between your work and climate change?
Well, we're documenting the effect of the climate change locally here, of course, but I have colleagues all over the globe who are doing similar things, and they're all seeing the same thing.
The impact of melting glaciers is sea level rise, which affects every coastal community in America.
If you live in Florida, you're seeing the effect of sea level rise already. There's plenty of pictures of very high tides, which are not caused by any storms or anything. It's just a daily occurrence. And this is because sea level is inexorably rising, and glaciers are contributing very significantly to that.
And David Schechter joins us now from Dallas. David, even before you went to Svalbard, you'd been covering this story for years. So when this study came out this week, were you surprised?
I wasn't surprised. This is part of a large body of research from scientists who continue to work on this issue from around the world. I could see it with my own eyes in Svalbard. I've seen it on glaciers in Alaska. You can see the rising sea levels in the lower side of Manhattan on the east side, where they're building a multi-billion-dollar seawall. You can see it out in San Diego, where there's a train line that's being impacted by higher waters that start to erode the cliffs. This is, if you look, this is a problem, and this new research just is a continuation of this.
David, it seemed like an intense experience to be there in Norway. Were you affected by what you saw?
I really was. It was one of those moments I didn't know what I was walking into necessarily. He said, let's go do something called a mass balance. I wasn't sure what that was. And to be there standing 6 feet tall and have that stake be several feet over my head, I really was, as you saw, just quite shocked to understand that's what happens in the course of one season.
Oh, there you go.
They are putting on quite a show for us today.
They're putting on quite a show.
Here on the edge of the Arctic, the annual migration of these polar bears draws tourists, photographers.
They are sparring or play fighting.
And scientists like Jeff Yore. Buggies traverse this frozen terrain, bringing tourists closer to something truly wild.
What were you expecting? To see polar bears.
So it looks like we have a mom with a 2-year-old.
The polar bears pass through Churchill, Manitoba, hoping to catch a ride out of the tiny town on Hudson Bay's sea ice.
We see what are most likely 3 males.
After a summer of fasting on land, the bears need to get back to their frozen home to hunt seals and bulk up.
They're just dreaming of ice and being back out there.
But this migration ritual is changing.
The Arctic is one of the fastest warming regions of the planet.
Climate researchers say the Arctic is warming nearly 4 times faster than the rest of the globe, according to weather data. Climate scientist Flavio Lehner says that's melting the sea ice bears depend on.
It's important because it's a complete transformation of the ecosystem.
The western Hudson Bay polar bears are off the ice for a month longer than their parents and grandparents. That hurts their hunting and ability to have healthy cubs that make it to adulthood. A change that has cut this population by up to half in 40 years.
It's actually hard to find other places, maybe other than places that have been deforested in the Amazon, where you see such a stark change.
But what happens up in the Arctic trickles down to all of us.
If the sea ice disappears, the Arctic will warm faster and the planet will warm faster.
Think of that ice like the Earth's air conditioner. It reflects light and heat away from our waters. Without it, the sun is absorbed and warms our oceans. Scientists say to slow the melting, we need to significantly cut emissions from fossil fuels.
The Arctic is just an indicator for me of what's likely to come to all of us. It's nature's way of telling us we need to do something.
A change even the kings of the Arctic are helpless to stop. Erin Hassanzadeh, CBS News.
Antarctica's thinning ice glaciers have raised alarms about the urgency of climate change and offered researchers new depths for exploration. In tonight's In Depth, CBS's Dave Malkoff takes us under the ice where scientists discovered a new world.
This is a part of our planet never seen, an undersea world that's been unknown. Scientists aboard this international research vessel were on a January mission to the Antarctic Ocean. They were already encountering strange creatures like this incredibly rare phantom jelly. But the trip was about to get way more exciting.
So this ice shelf broke, and the scientists went to investigate what was underneath.
The team was 57 miles away when a chunk of ice the size of Chicago calved into the ocean, revealing seafloor that had never been accessible to humans. So they monitored the ice over satellite and raced there in one day to lower a submersible robot more than 1,000 meters deep into the ocean to explore the area. Dr. Patrícia Esquete of Portugal was the lead scientist on board.
How long was it until you started seeing things that humans have never seen before?
Almost immediately. The first thing we saw was a huge sponge with a crab on it. That's already quite amazing, because one question that we had is, will there be any life at all under an ice shelf?
Sponges take a very long time to grow, and to get this big, scientists say this world must have been locked away in the darkness, thriving under the ice possibly for centuries.
How in the world does anything exist when there's no energy getting down there for them to eat? Where is that energy coming from?
That's one of the things that we are aiming to figure out and to study and to research from now on.
It could be ocean currents, bringing in the nutrients.
Dr. Jyotika Vermani is the executive director of the Schmidt Ocean Institute. They sponsored the dive that saw this purple and orange crinoid. They also saw what looks like a golden palm tree, but that's actually a starfish relative.
Well, I know that they have found at least 6 new species confirmed, but I think there's many more yet to be analyzed.
The Antarctica is changing rapidly, and in order to understand what's going to happen, we really need to come back and keep studying and keep trying to learn and understand what was driving that ecosystem under the ice shelf.
Because Schmidt Ocean Institute makes all of its research open access, this door to a new section of our ocean is now open for other scientists to explore. Dave Malkoff, CBS News, Santa Monica.